body was found inside a car at a Hollywood tow lot today. Los Angeles investigators identifying the remains as 15-year-old Celeste Rivas.
But now they're trying to figure out how she ended up dead in his Tesla.
Silence. Then a smell. Coming from a car. Sitting in a Hollywood tow yard on an ordinary Tuesday morning like it was absolutely nobody's business. Workers had walked past that black Tesla for weeks. Nobody thought twice about it. Nobody stopped. Nobody looked twice. It was just another impounded vehicle collecting dust in a city that impounds hundreds of cars every single week. Just metal and wheels and California sun beating down on it day after day after day. Until one morning, September 8th, 2025, somebody finally got close enough to notice that something was very, very wrong. They popped the front trunk. And what they found inside was what was left of a 14-year-old girl. A child. Dismembered. Stuffed inside a car. Baking in the California heat for months. While the man prosecutors say put her there was on stage performing for screaming fans. Collecting streams. Signing autographs. Doing press. Smiling for cameras. Living his life like nothing in the world had happened. Her name was Celeste Abigail Rivas Hernandez. She was somebody's daughter. Somebody's whole world. A girl who loved to sing and dance and told her parents she loved them. And nobody had been looking for her hard enough. And by the time the world finally found her, it was already far, far too late. This is her story, and I want you to stay with me through every single word of it. Because this case is not just about one man and one crime. It is about every warning sign that was ignored. Every system that looked the other way. Every moment where somebody could have saved this child and didn't. I'm warning you right now. It does not get easier from here. But Celeste deserves for you to hear it. Let's go back to the beginning. Lake Elsinore, California. A working-class city in Riverside County, about an hour southeast of Los Angeles. Not glamorous. Not the kind of place that shows up in music videos or Hollywood stories. Just a regular American community where people work hard, raise families, and try to build something good out of what they have. That's exactly what Jesus Rivas and Mercedes Martinez were doing. They had immigrated from El Salvador with nothing but determination and love for each other, and they had built a real life in Lake Elsinore. A home, a family, a future. And on September 7th, 2010, they welcomed a daughter into that life. Celeste Abigail Rivas Hernandez. By every account from people who knew her, Celeste was a bright and loving kid. She had energy. She had personality. She loved music, genuinely loved it, not just as background noise, but as something that moved her. She would sing. She would dance around the house. She was the kind of child who filled a room. And she was close to her parents. She told them she loved them. She was, in the most ordinary and beautiful sense of the word, just a kid growing up in a family that adored her. She was 11 years old when a grown man first started talking to her online. 11 years old. A sixth grader. A child who still had the whole of her life ahead of her. And somewhere on the internet, in the middle of a fan community built around a musician's name, a door opened that should have stayed locked forever. His name is David Anthony Burke. Born in 2003, raised in Texas. The world knew him by his stage name, D4vd. And if you were a teenager anywhere on social media in the early 2020s, you almost certainly knew who he was. He had built his following the way a lot of Gen Z artists did, through TikTok, through Discord, through the kind of intimate online presence that makes fans feel like they actually know you. And it worked. His music caught fire. His song Romantic Homicide became a viral sensation. And I want you to hold that title in your mind as this story unfolds, because the irony of it is something I cannot move past. He got a record deal with Interscope Records, one of the biggest labels in the world. He started selling out shows. He had a debut studio album in the works and a world tour booked. He was, by every measure the music industry uses, a star ascending. And he was the kind of famous that made young girls trust him. The kind of famous that made parents think, oh, he's just a musician. He seems harmless. He's just a kid himself. That is exactly what made him dangerous. According to prosecutors and court filings, David Burke found Celeste through his own official Discord fan server, a space he had created and maintained for his fans. She was 11 years old when she entered that world. He was approaching 18. And here is the part that should make every single person watching this feel sick. Other users in that server were already calling Celeste his girlfriend. Out in the open. In a public server with thousands of members. Where any adult moderator, any label representative, any responsible person could have seen it and done something. Nobody did anything. The contact continued. It deepened. And prosecutors alleged that by the time Celeste was 13 years old, David Burke, then 18 or 19, had begun sexually abusing her. A child, 13 years old. And this was not, according to the prosecution, some secret hidden in shadow. This was happening while Celeste was active in his fan community, while she was communicating with him constantly, while people around both of them knew something was going on. When Celeste's parents finally discovered what was happening and took her phone away, thinking that a removed phone would remove the problem, prosecutors say Burke did something that tells you everything you need to know about who he is. He got in his car. He drove from wherever he was to Lake Elsinore, and he found one of Celeste's classmates, a junior high school student, a child herself, and he handed that child $1,000 in cash to deliver a brand new phone directly to Celeste, a phone Burke had purchased, so that the communication would never stop, so that the access he had to this little girl could not be taken away by her own parents in her own home. Read that back slowly. A grown man, paying a child's classmate $1,000 to maintain a line of communication to a 13-year-old girl whose parents had just tried to cut him off. And it gets worse, because this was not even a secret from law enforcement. Deputies from the Riverside County Sheriff's Office had spoken directly to Burke. They had looked him in the face and told him, "She is 13 years old. She is a child. Back off." He looked right back at them, and he didn't back off. Between 2023 and early 2024, Celeste was reported missing 3 separate times. 3 times. Her parents called law enforcement. 3 times her name was entered into a system specifically designed to track missing children. And 3 times, instead of that system pulling her away from danger permanently, she ended up cycling back into contact with Burke, back into a situation her parents were desperately trying to extract her from. While her mother and father were filing those reports in Riverside County, spending sleepless nights not knowing where their daughter was, Celeste was traveling with Burke. Not locally, not nearby. She went to Las Vegas with him. She went to London with him. She went to Texas. She sat inside his family's home and met the people who raised him. A missing 13-year-old girl from a working-class family in Lake Elsinore, California, sitting inside the home of a music star's family in Texas. And nobody stopped it. In April of 2024, Celeste was reported missing once again. And then in May of 2024, something shifted. She stopped calling home. She stopped texting. The line went quiet. Her parents were left in a silence that no parent should ever have to endure, not knowing if their child is alive, not knowing where she is, not knowing if she's safe or hurting or scared. Just silence. Day after day, week after week, month after month. And somewhere inside that silence, prosecutors say, the final chapter of Celeste's life was already being written. Now we move forward to April of 2025, nearly a full year after Celeste went quiet. She is 14 now. She had a birthday in September of 2024 that her parents may not have been able to celebrate with her. She has been in Burke's world for roughly 3 years at this point. 3 years of a childhood consumed by a grown man who prosecutors say manipulated, groomed, and abused her from the time she was a little girl. On April 22, 2025, something breaks open between them. The two of them are exchanging messages, a long, heated, volatile argument. The kind of argument that has history behind it, layers of it, years of complicated and deeply unequal dynamics erupting all at once. Celeste is angry. She feels betrayed. She is a 14-year-old girl who has given up her family, her safety, her childhood, for this man, and something has pushed her to a breaking point. And then she types something. A threat. She tells Burke that she is going to expose everything. She is going to tell the world exactly what he did to her, what he has been doing to her since she was 11 years old. She tells him she is going to end his career. She tells him she is going to destroy his life. Now here is what was happening in David Burke's world at that exact moment. His debut studio album, the album he had been working toward, the album his entire career had been building to, was scheduled for release on April 25th. 3 days away. The Withered World Tour was booked. Venues were sold. Tickets were in people's hands. Interviews were lined up. The machine was in full motion. Everything he had worked for, every stream, every fan server, every viral moment, every industry relationship, all of it was about to pay off in the biggest way of his career. And a 14-year-old girl was threatening to burn it all to the ground. Prosecutors say he made a decision that night. The following evening, April 23, 2025, a car appeared outside Celeste's home in Lake Elsinore. An Uber, ordered and paid for by Burke. She got in. She did not call 911. There was no panicked phone call, no desperate scramble to get her help, no moment of horror where he tried to undo what he had done. According to prosecutors, he just stood there, and he let her die. A child bled out on the floor, and the man who put her there did nothing to save her. And then he went to work cleaning it up. What he allegedly did next requires you to understand that this was not a crime of pure impulse that fell apart in the aftermath. What followed, according to prosecutors, was methodical. It was calculated. It was the behavior of someone who had thought about what came next. Burke allegedly went online and ordered 2 chainsaws from Amazon, under a fake name. Not his own name, a fake one. He purchased a body bag. He purchased an inflatable pool. And then, in the garage of his Hollywood Hills home, prosecutors allege that David Burke dismembered the body of Celeste Rivas Hernandez. Her DNA was later recovered from that garage, from the floor of a garage in a nice house in the Hollywood Hills, where a child's remains had been cut apart by the man who killed her. He then placed what was left of her inside the front trunk of his black Tesla, drove the car to a location where he knew it would eventually be impounded, left it there, and then David Anthony Burke packed a bag, went to the airport, boarded a plane, and flew to his next tour date. His album, the one Celeste had threatened to destroy, dropped on April 25th, 2 days after he allegedly murdered her. He performed shows. He took the stage in front of crowds of fans who had no idea. He gave press. He did the work of a musician on the rise. He collected the streams. He watched the numbers go up. And in a tow yard somewhere in Hollywood, a black Tesla sat, with Celeste inside it. Days passed. Weeks passed. Months passed. The California sun beat down on that car over and over again. Summer came. The city moved around it. People walked past it. And Celeste was in there the entire time. Until September 8th, 2025, when the smell finally made it impossible to ignore any longer. When a worker got close enough to that car, and something told them something was deeply, catastrophically wrong. When they opened that trunk and the world lurched sideways. One day, one single day after what would have been Celeste's 15th birthday, the LAPD did not rush. They knew that a case like this would require careful, airtight work. They executed a search warrant on the Hollywood Hills property where Burke had been living. Inside and around that house, they found computers and electronic devices that were seized as evidence. They also found something on the property that stopped investigators cold, a burn cage incinerator. The kind of thing you use when you need to make things disappear permanently. Burke's management moved to terminate his lease on the property almost immediately after law enforcement descended on it. Meanwhile, as investigators worked through the evidence, Burke remained out in the world. His label Interscope Records eventually halted promotional activities as the investigation crept closer to him publicly. The music industry, which had embraced him so enthusiastically just months earlier, began to quietly distance itself. In November of 2025, the dam broke. Burke was publicly named as the primary suspect in the murder of Celeste Rivas Hernandez. His name was everywhere. His face was on every true crime platform, every news outlet, every social media feed. The fans who had streamed his music and followed his Discord server and bought tickets to his shows were suddenly confronted with who prosecutors said he really was. Interscope Records severed ties completely. The remainder of the Withered World Tour was canceled. The carefully constructed public identity of D4vd, the sensitive alt-pop artist, the relatable internet-native musician, the boy next door with the viral songs, began to disintegrate in real time. Investigators also turned their attention to Burke's family in Texas. His family had met Celeste. She had been inside their home. They were subpoenaed to testify before a grand jury. When they attempted to legally fight the subpoenas, to avoid having to sit down and answer questions under oath, the case went before a Texas judge. The judge looked at their petition and denied it. They would have to testify. And then came April of 2026. David Anthony Burke was arrested. He was taken into custody and charged with first-degree murder in the death of Celeste Rivas Hernandez. He was also charged with continuous sexual abuse of a minor, lewd and lascivious acts upon a child under the age of 14, and mutilation of human remains. For charges, each one representing a different layer of what prosecutors say he did to a child he met when she was 11 years old. But the Los Angeles District Attorney was not finished. They added special circumstances to the first-degree murder charge. In California, special circumstances in a murder case changes everything. It means the prosecution is saying this was not just a killing, it was something more. A murder committed to prevent a witness from testifying. A murder to silence someone who could expose a crime. And special circumstances means one thing above all else when it comes to sentencing. The death penalty is on the table. On April 20th, 2026, David Anthony Burke stood before a judge and entered his plea. Not guilty. His attorney, Blair Burke, stepped forward and told the press that the actual evidence in this case would show that David Burke did not murder Celeste Rivas Hernandez and was not the cause of her death. The defense is fighting. The case is being contested. That is their right under the law, and it is how the legal system is supposed to work. But Burke remains in custody. No bail. The case moves forward. And Celeste remains gone. Here is what I need you to sit with before you move on with your day. Celeste Rivas Hernandez was reported missing 3 times before she died. 3 times. Law enforcement had her name. They had her file. Deputies had spoken face-to-face with the man now charged with her murder and told him directly that she was 13 years old. She was not hiding. She was not a ghost. She was a real child whose name was in real systems and whose danger was visible to people who had the authority to intervene. She traveled internationally with this man. She went to London. She was in Las Vegas. She sat inside his family home in Texas. She was in a public Discord server where users were openly calling her his girlfriend when she was 11 years old. There were thousands of people in that server. There were label representatives. There were adults in positions of authority in his professional world. None of it was hidden. All of it was there to be seen. And she was failed. Quietly, consistently, and fatally failed. By systems that exist for exactly this reason. By adults who had the information and did not act on it with the urgency that a child's life required. On September 7th, 2025, Celeste Rivas Hernandez turned 14 years old. Her last birthday. And the very next day, her body was found in the trunk of a car in a Hollywood tow yard. She should be 15 right now. She should be in school. She should be dancing and singing in her parents' house and driving her family crazy in all the wonderful ways teenagers do. She should have decades ahead of her, first jobs and friendships, and all of the ordinary, extraordinary moments that make up a life. Instead, her name is attached to a criminal case. Instead, her parents are waiting for a trial. Instead, the world knows her only because of the worst thing that ever happened to her. That is not who Celeste was. She was a daughter. She was a kid from Lake Elsinore who loved music and loved her family and deserved every single thing that was taken from her. Say her name. Share this story. Not for the algorithm. Not for the views. But because Celeste Rivas Hernandez was a real human being who was let down by too many people for too long, and the very least we can do, the absolute bare minimum, is make sure that she is not forgotten. Make sure her name outlasts this case. Make sure that when people talk about what failed her, they talk about it loudly enough that it can never happen to another child like her. That is why this channel exists. That is why we tell these stories. I'll see you in the next one.